The sun had turned her lips to cracked leather, and Sarah Monroe's shadow was the only companion she trusted not to betray her as she stumbled across the Nevada desert, 3 days now without a single drop of water touching her parched throat. Her father's wagon train had been attacked by bandits outside of Las Vegas 2 weeks prior, and in the chaos of gunfire and screaming horses, she had run into the desert with nothing but the torn calico dress on her back and her mother's locket around her neck. She had thought she was running toward civilization, toward help, toward anything but the violence erupting behind her. Instead, she had run deeper into the wasteland that stretched between Las Vegas and the scattered mining settlements to the south. The first day, she had been sure she would find water. The Colorado River was out here somewhere, wasn't it? Or one of its tributaries. But the desert was vast and unforgiving, and what looked like water in the distance always dissolved into shimmering heat when she drew closer. The second day, her tongue had begun to swell, and she had tried to ration her own saliva, which seemed ridiculous even as she attempted it. By the third day, this day, she could no longer produce spit at all, and her thoughts had begun to scatter like tumbleweeds in wind. She had stopped trying to walk in a straight line. Her feet simply moved, one in front of the other, because stopping felt like surrender, and Sarah Monroe had never surrendered to anything in her 22 years of life. Her father had always said she had the stubbornness of a Missouri mule, which was fitting since that was where they had started their journey west back in the spring of 1882. It was August now, or at least she thought it was. Time had become as fluid as the heat waves rising from the cracked earth. When she saw the rider in the distance, she thought at first it was another mirage, another trick of her dying mind. But mirages did not kick up actual dust, and this rider was real, solid, moving with the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was and where he was going. Sarah tried to call out, but her throat produced only a rasping whisper that would not carry 3 feet, let alone the 100 yards between them. She waved her arms instead, or tried to. Her limbs felt disconnected from her body, operating on their own failing power. One arm rose about shoulder height before falling again. It was enough. The rider's head turned in her direction, and even through the haze of heat and exhaustion, she saw him stiffen in his saddle, then spur his horse into a gallop toward her. The last thing Sarah saw before her legs finally gave out was the rider dismounting before his horse had even fully stopped, his boots hitting the ground with purpose. Then the earth rushed up to meet her, and everything went black. Water touched her lips, and Sarah's body responded before her mind fully returned. She gulped desperately, her hands coming up to grasp at whatever was providing this miracle. Firm hands caught her wrists, holding them gently but securely. "Easy now," a man's voice said, low and calm. "Too much too fast will make you sick. Just small sips." Sarah forced her eyes open, squinting against the brightness of the sky. A face swam into focus above her, shadowed by the brim of a worn brown hat. The man was young, perhaps 26 or 27, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of creek water, somewhere between brown and green, depending on the light. A few days' worth of stubble darkened his jaw, and concern creased the corners of those unusual eyes. "That is better," he said, and Sarah realized she was lying in the shade of a rock outcropping she had not even noticed before. The man was kneeling beside her, holding a canteen to her lips with one hand while the other supported the back of her head. "Few more sips, then you rest a minute before more." His voice carried the slow drawl of someone who had spent significant time in Texas, though there was something else underneath it, an accent she could not quite place. Sarah took another small sip, the water like heaven on her destroyed throat, then forced herself to pull back, even though every instinct screamed at her to drain the entire canteen. "Good," the man said approvingly. He withdrew the canteen and set it beside him, well within her sight so she would know it was there. "You have been out here long." 3 days, Sarah croaked, her voice barely recognizable even to herself. "No water. 3 days." Something flickered across the man's face, an expression she could not read. 3 days without water in August," he said quietly. almost to himself. You should be dead. Felt like it, Sarah managed. The corner of his mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. I bet you did. What is your name? Sarah Monroe. There was an attack. Bandits, my father's wagon train. The man's expression went carefully neutral, which told Sarah more than words would have. He knew something about the attack, or about bandits in the area, or both. My name is Cole Quinn, he said after a moment. I work cattle between here and El Dorado Canyon, and I know where every spring, every seep, every water source is within 100 miles. You walked right past Cottonwood Spring yesterday, I would wager. It is hidden in a box canyon about 3 miles north of here. Easy to miss if you do not know what to look for. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, though her body had no moisture to spare for crying. 3 miles. She had been 3 miles from water and walked right past it. Hey now, Cole said, his voice gentler. You did not know. No shame in that. The desert keeps her secrets from those who were not raised in her. Are you going to leave me here? Sarah asked, hating how small her voice sounded but needing to know. Cole's eyebrows drew together in what looked like genuine offense. What kind of man do you think I am? No, I am not going to leave you here. I am taking you to El Dorado Canyon. There is a doctor there and you need looking after proper. But first, you need more water and some food if you can keep it down. He reached for a saddlebag Sarah had not noticed, pulling out a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside was dried beef and hardtack. Her stomach, which had been empty for 3 days, suddenly roared to life with hunger so intense it was painful. Slow, Cole warned again, handing her a small piece of the jerky. I know you are hungry, but your stomach has shrunk. Too much too fast and you will lose it all. Sarah forced herself to chew slowly, letting the salt and smoke flavor of the dried meat coat her mouth before swallowing. It was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. Cole handed her the canteen again, and she took another few small sips, feeling more human with each passing moment. The wagon train attack, Cole said, his tone careful. When did it happen? 2 weeks ago, maybe? I have lost track of days. We were camped outside Las Vegas, heading for California. My father was taking us to Sacramento. His brother has land there. What happened to the others? Sarah's hands tightened on the canteen. I do not know. The bandits came at dawn. They were shooting before anyone was fully awake. My father pushed me toward the desert and told me to run. I heard my mother screaming and then more gunshots, and I just kept running. I thought I was running toward help, but I must have gotten turned around. Cole was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as though he was chewing over difficult words. I am sorry, he finally said. That attack, I heard about it in Las Vegas last week. Most of the wagon train was killed. A few were taken by the bandits, probably to be ransomed or sold across the Mexican border. If your parents were among those killed, I am truly sorry. Sarah closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. She had known in her heart that her parents were likely dead. Her father would not have pushed her away to run if he thought there was any chance of survival. He had been giving her the only gift he had left to give, a chance to escape, and she had taken it and run like a coward while her parents died. You did what your father wanted, Cole said, as though reading her thoughts. You survived. That is not cowardice. That is honoring his last wish. You do not know that was his last wish. I know what I would wish if I was a father with a daughter in danger. I would wish for her to live no matter what it costs me. Sarah opened her eyes to find Cole looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch despite her exhaustion. There was something in his gaze, some depth of understanding that suggested he knew exactly what it meant to lose everything. Can you ride? He asked, breaking the moment. My horse can carry us both to El Dorado Canyon, but it will be easier if you can stay in the saddle on your own while I walk alongside. I can ride, Sarah said, though in truth she was not entirely sure. Her legs felt like they were made of sand, and her head was still swimming despite the water and food. Cole seemed to sense her uncertainty. We will try it. If it does not work, You ride, and I walk. Either way, we need to get moving. It is about 4 hours to El Dorado Canyon from here, and I want to reach it before dark. He stood, offering her his hand. Sarah took it, his palm warm and calloused against her own, and let him pull her to her feet. The world tilted alarmingly for a moment, and Cole's arm came around her waist, steadying her against his side. Take your time, he said. Your body has been through hell. It needs time to remember how to work right. They stood there for a moment, Sarah leaning against this stranger who had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to voice, and slowly the world stopped spinning. She could smell him, an oddly comforting mixture of horse and leather and sweat and sage. It was the smell of something real and solid and alive, and after 3 days of nothing but her own fear and the sterile emptiness of the desert, it was almost overwhelming. Okay, she said quietly. I am ready. Cole's horse was a rangy bay gelding with intelligent eyes and a patient disposition. Cole helped Sarah into the saddle, his hands careful and professional, then handed her the reins. His name is Ranger, Cole said, adjusting the stirrups for her shorter legs. He is steady as a rock, and he knows the way home. You just sit there and let him do the work. If you feel faint, tell me immediately. Understood? Understood. Cole gathered Ranger's lead rope and started walking, setting a pace that was brisk but not punishing. Sarah swayed in the saddle but managed to stay upright, her hands gripping the pommel for stability. True to Cole's word, Ranger walked as though he was carrying precious cargo, his gait smooth and measured. As they traveled, Sarah found herself studying the man leading her to safety. Cole Quinn moved through the desert like he was part of it, his steps sure even on the uneven ground, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon and the terrain around them. He wore typical cowboy gear, worn denim pants, a faded blue shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, a leather vest that had seen better days, and that brown hat that shaded his face from the relentless sun. A gun belt sat low on his hips, the holster tied down in the manner of someone who knew how to use the weapon and might need to draw it quickly. Why were you out here? Sarah asked after they had been traveling for perhaps an hour. Her voice was stronger now, though still raspy. You said you work cattle, but I have not seen any cattle. I was checking on a water source, Cole replied, without turning around. There is a spring about 6 miles back that my herd depends on in the dry season. I ride out every few days to make sure it has not dried up or been fouled by something. Today, I found you instead. Lucky for me. Lucky for both of us. I would have had a hard time sleeping nights knowing I had left someone to die in the desert. Are you from around here? Your accent sounds Texan, but not quite. Cole glanced back at her, one eyebrow raised in amusement. You have a good ear. I am from Texas originally, raised on a ranch outside San Antonio. My mother was Mexican from Sonora. My father was a cattleman from Virginia who came west after the war. I got a bit of everything in my voice, I suppose. How did you end up in Nevada? Long story. We have 4 hours. Cole was quiet for a moment, then shrugged. Fair enough. After my parents died, the ranch went to my older brother. He did not have much use for a younger half-brother, especially one who reminded him every day that our father had loved someone else before his mother. So I took my inheritance, which was enough for a good horse and some gear, and headed west. Worked as a cowhand in Arizona for a while, then followed a trail herd up to Nevada. Found I liked it here. The desert is honest. It will kill you if you are stupid or unprepared, but it will not lie to you or pretend to be something it is not. There was a wealth of pain in those simple words, layers of rejection and loss that Sarah recognized because she was now intimately familiar with both. I am sorry about your parents, she said. It was a long time ago. I was 18 when they died. 27 now. Almost a decade. You learn to carry it. Does it get easier? Cole stopped walking and turned to face her fully. His eyes, she realized, were definitely more green than brown in the late afternoon light. It gets different, he said honestly. The sharp edges wear down, and you learn to remember the good things instead of just the loss. But if you are asking if the hole they leave ever fills in completely, then no, it does not. You just build your life around it. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. She had known her parents for 22 years, had been loved and protected and cherished. And now they were gone and she was alone in the world, except for an uncle in California she had met exactly twice in her entire life. You will survive this, Cole said, as though he could see the despair circling her like vultures. You already survived the impossible. 3 days without water, and you are still here. You are tougher than you know. I do not feel tough. I feel broken. Broken things can be mended. It just takes time and care and patience. He turned and started walking again, and Sarah found herself blinking back tears that her dehydrated body still could not produce. There was something about Cole Quinn's matter-of-fact kindness that undid her more thoroughly than any sympathy could have. The sun was sinking toward the horizon when they finally crested a ridge, and Sarah saw El Dorado Canyon spread out below them. It was not much of a town, really, just a collection of buildings clustered along a narrow canyon where a creek provided precious water year-round. She could see a main street, a few side streets branching off, and the dark openings of mine shafts dotting the canyon walls. Smoke rose from chimneys, and in the golden light of approaching evening, it looked like civilization, safety, and salvation all rolled into one. Almost there, Cole said, and Sarah could hear the relief in his voice. He was worried about her, she realized, had probably been worried since he found her that she might not make it despite his best efforts. They descended into the canyon as the shadows lengthened, and curious faces turned to watch them pass. A few people called out greetings to Cole, their eyes sharp with curiosity as they took in the bedraggled woman on his horse. Cole nodded back, but did not stop to explain, leading Ranger straight to a building with a hand-painted sign that read, Dr. James Fisher, Physician and Surgeon. Wait here, Cole said, wrapping Ranger's reins around a hitching post. He disappeared inside the building and returned moments later with a man in his 50s, balding and bespectacled, who took one look at Sarah and immediately shifted into professional mode. Get her inside, Dr. Fisher said briskly. Cole, help her down carefully. How long has she been without water? 3 days, Cole replied, reaching up to steady Sarah as she half dismounted, half fell out of the saddle. Her legs buckled immediately, and Cole caught her, swinging her up into his arms as though she weighed nothing. 3 days, the doctor repeated, his tone sharp with concern. Bring her into the examination room. I need to check for organ damage. The next hour passed in a blur of medical assessment. Dr. Fisher examined her thoroughly, asking questions about her symptoms, checking her reflexes and her heart rate, and a dozen other things Sarah did not fully understand. He made her drink water at intervals, small amounts spaced carefully, and fed her spoonfuls of broth that tasted like the finest meal she had ever eaten. Cole stayed the entire time, standing against the wall with his arms crossed, his presence somehow both unobtrusive and reassuring. Whenever Sarah's eyes found him, he offered a small nod of encouragement, and she found herself drawing strength from his steady calm. Finally, Doctor. Fisher sat back and removed his spectacles, polishing them on his shirt. You are one of the luckiest young women I have ever met, he said bluntly. 3 days without water should have killed you. You are severely dehydrated, obviously, and your kidneys are stressed, but I do not see signs of permanent damage. You are going to need complete rest for at least a week, careful monitoring of your water and food intake, and time to heal. But you will recover fully. She can stay at my place, Cole said immediately. I have a cabin about a mile outside town, near my herd's grazing land. She will have privacy and quiet, and I can make sure she follows your orders. Doctor. Fisher looked between them, his expression thoughtful. You two are not married or engaged, I take it? We met today, Sarah said, her voice still raspy. He saved my life. Well, normally I would suggest boarding her in town where propriety could be maintained. but we are full up at the moment. Mining company brought in a new crew, and every room is spoken for. Your cabin might be the best option, Cole, but you will need to find a chaperone. Perhaps Mrs. Chen from the laundry could stay out there with you. I will ask her, Cole agreed. In the meantime, can Sarah travel a mile on horseback, or should she stay here tonight? She can travel if she goes slow, but Cole, I mean it about the chaperone. I know you are a decent man, but this young woman has been through enough without having her reputation questioned. Sarah wanted to laugh at the absurdity of worrying about reputation when she had just spent 3 days dying in the desert. But she understood the doctor's concern. A young unmarried woman staying alone with a bachelor cowboy would cause talk, and in a small town like El Dorado Canyon, talk could be damaging. I understand, Cole said. I will fetch Mrs. Chen now, and she can ride out with us. Mrs. Chen turned out to be a tiny Chinese woman of indeterminate age with sharp eyes and hands that moved with the efficiency of long practice. She agreed immediately to Cole's request, gathering a bag of her belongings with impressive speed, and within 30 minutes they were riding out of town. Sarah rode Ranger again, but this time Cole rode behind her, his arms on either side to steady her, while Mrs. Chen rode her own mule with the efficiency of someone who had been in the American West long enough to adapt to its demands. The arrangement should have been awkward, but Sarah was too exhausted to care, and Cole's presence behind her felt safe rather than threatening. Cole's cabin was small but well maintained, a single-room structure with a sleeping loft, a stone fireplace, and furniture that looked handmade but sturdy. There was a separate lean-to for Ranger, and what Sarah assumed was Mrs. Chen's mule, and a small, spring-fed creek ran past the cabin, providing fresh water. I will sleep in the barn, Cole said as he helped Sarah dismount. Mrs. Chen can take the bed, and you can have the loft. It is more comfortable than it looks. This is your home, Sarah protested weakly. I cannot displace you. You can and you will. Doctor's orders are rest, and you cannot rest if you are uncomfortable or worried. Mrs. Chen, there is food in the cupboard and the root cellar. Help yourself to anything you need. Mrs. Chen nodded briskly, already moving around the cabin with the assurance of someone taking charge of a situation. You go tend your horse, she said to Cole. I take care of girl. She needs sleep more than anything now. Cole caught Sarah's eye, offering a slight smile. You are in good hands. Mrs. Chen practically runs El Dorado Canyon. The mayor just does not know it yet. I know it, Mrs. Chen said with a sniff. Mayor is fool. Now go. Despite everything, Sarah felt her lips twitch in an almost smile as Cole retreated, shaking his head. Mrs. Chen immediately turned her formidable attention to Sarah, helping her out of her torn and filthy dress, providing her with one of Cole's clean shirts to sleep in, and settling her in the loft with a gentleness that belied her brusque manner. You sleep now? Mrs. Chen said firmly. Tomorrow you eat and drink and rest. Next day, same. Day after that, same, until you are strong again. Understand? Yes, madam, Sarah whispered, her eyes already closing. The loft was comfortable. The blanket smelled like sage and sunshine, and for the first time in weeks she felt safe. She was asleep before Mrs. Chen descended the ladder. Sarah woke to the smell of cooking and sunlight streaming through the loft's small window. For a moment she was disoriented, unsure where she was or how she had gotten there. Then memory returned in a rush. The attack, the desert, the 3 days of walking, Cole Quinn finding her. She sat up slowly, her body aching but functional. The worst of the dehydration symptoms had passed, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that Dr. Fisher had warned her would take time to overcome. Below, she could hear the murmur of voices, Cole and Mrs. Chen talking quietly. She needs fattening up, Mrs. Chen was saying. Too thin! Dessert almost killed her. Now we feed her, make her strong. Whatever you think is best, Cole replied. I trust your judgment. I need to ride out and check on the herd today, but I will be back by evening. If anything changes with Sarah, send word. She be fine. You go do your work. I take care of her. Sarah heard the door open and close, then silence. She climbed carefully down the loft ladder, her legs wobbly but working. Mrs. Chin looked up from the stove and nodded approvingly. Good. You are awake. Sit. Eat. Over the next week, Sarah lived in a haze of eating, drinking, and sleeping. Mrs. Chen proved to be an excellent nurse, forcing Sarah to consume small meals throughout the day, monitoring her water intake, and ensuring she rested completely. Cole came and went, always polite, always respectful, but Sarah found herself listening for the sound of his horse returning each evening, found herself relaxing when she heard his voice below. They fell into an easy routine. Cole would return from tending his cattle, wash up at the creek, and join them for dinner. He and Sarah would talk while Mrs. Chin cleaned up, their conversations ranging from the mundane to the surprisingly deep. Sarah learned that Cole had taught himself to read, using his mother's Bible and dime novels, that he loved the desert sunsets more than anything except a good horse, that he dreamed someday of having his own ranch with enough land to support a decent herd. Cole learned that Sarah had been a school teacher in Missouri, that she loved poetry and mathematics in equal measure, that her favorite color was the deep blue of the sky right after sunset. She told him about her childhood, about her parents' dreams of California, about the books she had read and the places she had wanted to see. On the 8th day, Dr. Fisher rode out to check on Sarah and pronounced her recovered enough to resume light activity. Mrs. Chin, satisfied that her patient was out of danger, announced she needed to return to her laundry business in town. You stay here, she told Sarah firmly. Town is too crowded, too noisy. You need quiet still. Cole is gentleman. He will behave, or I will hear about it and hurt him. I will behave, Cole said solemnly, though his eyes danced with suppressed laughter. After Mrs. Chen left on her mule, Sarah found herself alone with Cole for the first time since he had found her in the desert. It should have been awkward, but instead, it felt natural, as though they had been living this way for years rather than days. I should thank you properly, Sarah said, as they stood outside the cabin, watching Mrs. Chen disappear down the trail. You saved my life. I do not have money to repay you right now, but once I reach my uncle in California, I can send you something. Cole turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. I do not want your money, Sarah. Then what do you want? There must be something I can do to repay this debt. There is no debt. You do not owe me anything for being a decent human being. Most people would not have taken in a stranger, nursed her back to health, given up their bed and privacy. Then most people are not as decent as they should be. Cole paused, seeming to wrestle with something internal. If you want to repay me, stay for a while. Not because you owe me, but because I would like you to. I know you have your uncle in California, and I know you need to get word to him that you are alive. But maybe stay here in El Dorado Canyon for a few months. Get your strength fully back. Figure out what you want to do next. There is a school here that needs a teacher if you are interested. The last one left to get married, and the mining families are desperate for someone to teach their children. Sarah studied his face, trying to understand what he was really asking. There was something vulnerable in his expression, something that suggested this mattered to him more than his casual tone implied. Why do you want me to stay? She asked softly. Cole looked away, his jaw working. Because in the week you have been here, this cabin has felt more like a home than it has in the 3 years I have owned it. Because I enjoy talking to you, and I think you enjoy talking to me. Because I would like the chance to know you better, to see if this thing I am feeling is real or just circumstance. Sarah's heart stuttered in her chest. What thing are you feeling? He looked back at her, and the intensity in his green-brown eyes stole her breath. Like maybe you being lost in the desert and me finding you was not just luck. Like maybe it was meant to be, you and me meeting like this. Like maybe I have been waiting my whole life to find someone who understands what it means to be alone, and now that I have found you, I do not want to let you go. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility, with the weight of unspoken feelings that had been building between them since that first moment in the desert. Sarah knew she should be cautious, should protect her heart, should remember that she had just lost everything and was vulnerable. But she also knew that what she felt when she looked at Cole Quinn was real and honest, and unlike anything she had experienced before. "I will stay," she said, the words feeling right as soon as they left her mouth. "I will write to my uncle and let him know I am alive and safe, but I will stay, at least for a while." The smile that spread across Cole's face was like sunrise, bright and warm and full of promise. "Yeah? Yeah." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused and entirely right. They stood there, hands clasped, and Sarah felt something settle into place inside her. Some piece of herself she had not known was missing until it clicked home. The next few months unfolded like a dream Sarah had not known she was allowed to have. She took the teaching position at the El Dorado Canyon School, a one-room building that served children ranging from 6 to 15. She loved it immediately, loved the challenge of teaching multiple levels simultaneously, loved the eagerness of children who understood that education was a privilege and a pathway to a better future. Cole continued working his cattle, but he made time every day to ride into town and walk Sarah home from school. They would take the long way back to the cabin, which Sarah had essentially taken over while Cole continued sleeping in the barn despite her protests. They talked about everything and nothing, their conversations as comfortable as old friends and as electric as new lovers. Because that was what they were becoming, Sarah realized. Lovers, though they had not crossed that physical line yet. The way Cole looked at her made her skin warm, and the way she caught herself staring at his hands, or the line of his jaw, told her that her feelings had moved far beyond gratitude or friendship. The town noticed, of course. In a settlement as small as El Dorado Canyon, everyone noticed everything. But the talk was mostly positive, people commenting that Cole Quinn had finally found a woman who could match his quiet intensity, that the school teacher and the cowboy made a handsome pair. It was Mrs. Chen who finally forced the issue, appearing at the cabin one evening in October with her hands on her hips and fire in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she announced without preamble. "You two dance around each other like fools. Everyone can see you are in love. Why you not get married?" Sarah felt her face flame red, but Cole just laughed. "Maybe because I have not asked her yet, Mrs. Chen." "Then ask her. What you waiting for? Permission from President Arthur?" "I am waiting for the right moment." "Right moment is now. Sarah, you love this fool cowboy." Sarah looked at Cole, who had gone very still, his eyes locked on her face. "Yes," she said simply, "I love him." "Cole, you love this stubborn teacher woman?" "More than anything," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. "Then you get married. I go tell the minister. You get married this Sunday. Everyone is invited. I make food." Mrs. Chen turned and marched toward her mule, clearly considering the matter settled. After she left, Sarah and Cole stared at each other in shock, then burst into simultaneous laughter. "I was going to do this properly," Cole said when he caught his breath. "I was going to ask your uncle's permission, even though you are grown, and get you a ring and plan something romantic. Cole Quinn, are you actually complaining that you have to marry me?" "No, God, no. I am just saying I wanted to do it right." Sarah crossed to where he stood, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "You found me dying in the desert and brought me back to life. You gave me a home when I had nothing. You made me laugh when I thought I would never laugh again. You have already done everything right." Cole covered her hands with his own, turning his head to press a kiss to her palm. "Is that a yes? Will you marry me, Sarah Monroe? Will you build a life with me here in this desert that brought us together?" "Yes," Sarah whispered. "Yes to all of it." He kissed her then, finally, after months of restraint and careful distance. His lips were warm and gentle and tasted like coffee and promises, and Sarah felt herself melt into him, her arms winding around his neck as his encircled her waist. They stood there in the fading light, holding each other, and Sarah thought that 3 days without water had been worth it to find this man, this moment, this future unfolding before them. The wedding took place the following Sunday in the small church at the center of El Dorado Canyon. It seemed like the entire town turned out, crammed into pews and spilling out onto the street. Mrs. Chin had indeed made food, enough to feed an army, and had somehow bullied half the town's women into helping her. Sarah wore a simple dress in pale blue that Mrs. Fisher, the doctor's wife, had helped her sew. Cole wore his best shirt and pants, his boots polished to a shine, his hair slicked back with water. The ceremony was short and simple, but when the minister pronounced them man and wife and Cole kissed her in front of God and the entire population of El Dorado Canyon, Sarah felt tears stream down her face. These were different from the tears she had cried for her parents, for her lost life. These were tears of joy, of gratitude, of a future she had not dared to hope for. The celebration lasted until well after dark, with fiddle music and dancing and more food than anyone could possibly eat. Sarah danced with Cole until her feet hurt, then danced some more, laughing when he spun her and dipped her, and generally proved that cowboys could indeed move with grace when properly motivated. When they finally escaped to the cabin, now officially their shared home, Cole carried her over the threshold despite her laughing protests. He set her down gently inside, and for a moment, they just looked at each other in the lamplight, the reality of what they had just done settling over them. "Hello, husband," Sarah said softly. "Hello, wife," Cole replied, and the wonder in his voice matched what she felt. Their wedding night was tender and nervous and perfect, two people learning each other's bodies and hearts with patience and care. Cole was gentle, always checking that she was comfortable, that she wanted this. Sarah discovered that the calluses on his hands were surprisingly soft against her skin, that he kissed like he was savoring something precious, that the way he whispered her name in the darkness made her feel cherished beyond measure. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the loft that had become their bedroom. The blankets pooled around them and talked until the early hours of the morning. "Tell me about your mother," Sarah said, her head pillowed on Cole's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Cole's hand stroked through her hair, the gesture absent and soothing. "She was beautiful and fierce and kind. She taught me Spanish and how to read the desert, how to find water by watching where birds flew and what plants grew. She loved my father desperately, even though his first wife's family never accepted her, never accepted me. She died of fever when I was 16, and my father followed her 2 years later. I think his heart just gave up without her. That is beautiful and sad." "It is, but it taught me something important. It taught me that love like that is real, that it is worth everything. When my father married my mother, he gave up a lot. His first wife's family had money and connections, and they made sure he paid for choosing a Mexican woman over their approval. But he never regretted it, not once. He told me before he died that every moment with my mother was worth whatever it cost." Sarah lifted her head to look at Cole in the dim light. "Is that what you want? Love that costs everything and is worth it anyway?" "I already have it," Cole said, pulling her up for a kiss. "The moment I saw you in the desert, half dead and still fighting to survive, I knew you were going to cost me my heart, and it has been worth every moment since. You are quite the romantic for a cowboy. Do not tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain." Sarah laughed and settled back against his chest, feeling safe and loved and home. Outside, the desert night was cool and vast, but inside this cabin, inside Cole's arms, she had everything she needed. The first year of their marriage was filled with adjustments and discoveries. Sarah continued teaching, her students thriving under her patient instruction. Cole's cattle business grew slowly but steadily, and he began to acquire more land, building toward his dream of a true ranch. They worked hard, both of them, but they also made time for each other, for long rides into the desert where Cole showed Sarah the hidden springs and secret canyons he knew so well, for quiet evenings reading aloud to each other, for mornings waking up tangled together. Their first real argument came in the spring of 1883, when Cole announced he needed to take a trail drive to California and would be gone for 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Sarah repeated, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. That is a month and a half. I know. But the money from this drive will let us buy the land parcel we have been looking at, the one with the year-round creek. It is worth it, Sarah. I understand that it is worth it. I just do not like the idea of you being gone that long. What if something happens? Nothing will happen. I have done trail drives before. This is part of the work. I know, I just worry. Cole pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on top of her head. I will come back, I promise. You could not get rid of me if you tried. Besides, Mrs. Chen would hunt me down and kill me if I left you widowed. Despite her worry, Sarah laughed. She probably would. The 6 weeks Cole was gone were the longest of Sarah's life. She threw herself into her teaching and into helping some of the other women in town with various projects, but the cabin felt empty without him. She slept poorly, always reaching for him in the night and finding only cold blankets. When Cole finally returned, bearded and trail-worn but grinning, Sarah ran to meet him in a display that probably scandalized half the town. She did not care. He swept her up, spinning her around, and she buried her face in his neck and cried with relief. I am home, he murmured into her hair. I am home, and I am not leaving for that long ever again. I cannot stand being away from you. True to his word, Cole arranged his business so that future drives were shorter or he could send hands in his place. The land parcel with the creek was purchased, and they began the slow process of building their ranch, expanding the cabin to include a proper bedroom on the ground floor and a kitchen that was separate from the main living space. In the winter of 1883, Sarah realized she was pregnant. She told Cole on Christmas Eve, whispering the news as they lay together watching the fireplace. Cole went very still, then rolled to look at her, his eyes wide. Truly, Dr. Fisher confirmed it yesterday. I wanted to wait to tell you until I was sure. We are going to have a baby. Cole's voice was filled with wonder. You are going to be a mother. I am going to be a father. Are you happy? Happy? Cole laughed, the sound bordering on incredulous. Sarah, I am terrified and thrilled and so happy I might burst. A baby. Our baby. He kissed her, his hand splaying across her still flat stomach with a reverence that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. I am going to build you a cradle, he said. The finest cradle in Nevada territory. And I am going to teach our child everything my mother taught me, everything your father would have wanted them to know. And we are going to love them so much they never doubt for a moment that they are wanted. Their son was born in August of 1884, arriving during a monsoon storm that turned the desert briefly green. They named him Thomas after Sarah's father and Miguel after Cole's mother, and he was healthy and loud and perfect. Cole held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face, and Sarah fell even more in love with her husband watching him cradle their baby with such gentle strength. Being parents was harder than either of them had anticipated. Thomas was colicky and demanded attention constantly, and Sarah was exhausted from teaching all day and then caring for an infant all night. Cole helped as much as he could, but the cattle still needed tending, and there were only so many hours in the day. They snapped at each other more than they had in their entire marriage, both running on too little sleep and too much stress. But they also learned to work together, to support each other through the hard moments, to steal tiny pieces of joy whenever Thomas actually slept. I am sorry I was short with you yesterday, Sarah said one evening when Thomas was about 6 months old. She was rocking him by the fireplace while Cole cleaned up from dinner. I am sorry too. I know you are doing the hardest work, and I have not been as helpful as I should be. You are helpful. You are wonderful. I am just tired. Cole came to sit beside her, looking down at their sleeping son. He is worth it, though. Every sleepless night, every exhausting day. He is worth it. He really is. As Thomas grew into a toddler, their lives settled into a new rhythm. Sarah reduced her teaching schedule, working only 3 days a week so she could be home more with Thomas. Cole hired a couple of ranch hands, young men who were eager to learn the cattle business, which freed up more of his time. The ranch continued to grow, and their reputation for quality beef spread throughout Nevada and into California. In 1886, Sarah became pregnant again, and their daughter was born the following spring. They named her Catherine Rose, called her Katie, and she was as different from Thomas as possible. Where Thomas had been fussy and demanding, Katie was calm and observant. She rarely cried, seeming content to watch the world around her with Cole's unusual green-brown eyes. "She is going to be trouble," Cole said, grinning as he held her. "Too smart and too beautiful. I am going to have to fight off every cowboy in Nevada when she is older. She is 3 months old. I think we have some time. Never too early to start planning." By 1888, the Quinn Ranch was thriving. They had a proper house now, 2 stories with enough rooms for their growing family and any future children they might have. They employed 6 full-time ranch hands, and Cole had gained a reputation as a fair boss who paid well and treated his workers with respect. Sarah had stopped teaching to focus on raising Thomas and Katie, though she tutored children privately sometimes and served on the school board. Life was good, better than Sarah had ever imagined possible when she was dying in the desert. She and Cole had built something real and lasting, a partnership that went deeper than just love, though there was plenty of that too. They were true partners making decisions together, supporting each other's dreams, raising their children with patience and care. On their 6th wedding anniversary, Cole took Sarah back to the place where he had found her, riding out across the desert to that rocky outcropping where she had collapsed. They stood together, his arm around her waist, looking out at the vast emptiness that had almost killed her. "If you had told me that day that I would end up this happy, I would not have believed you," Sarah said softly. "I thought my life was over. I thought I had lost everything." "You had lost everything," Cole said. "Your parents, your plans, your whole future. That was real, but you found something new. We found each other. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not been out checking that spring that day? If you had not found me? All the time. And then I stop wondering because it hurts too much to imagine a world where you are not in it." Sarah turned to face him, reaching up to cup his bearded jaw in her hands. Over the years, she had memorized every line of his face, every expression, every mood. She knew him better than she knew herself sometimes. "I love you," she said. "I loved you the first time I saw your face above me in the desert, though I did not know it then. I loved you when you married me in front of the whole town. I loved you when you held our children for the first time. And I will love you until the desert reclaims us both." Cole kissed her, deep and thorough, a kiss that tasted of years and commitment and promises kept. "I love you too, Sarah Quinn. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, worth more than all the water in all the springs in Nevada." They stood there as the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson and purple. This land had almost killed her once, but it had also given her everything worth living for. It had given her Cole. As they rode back toward home, toward their children and their ranch and the life they had built together, Sarah thought about her parents, about the attack that had set her on this unexpected path. She still missed them, probably always would. The hole their deaths had left had not filled in, just as Cole had said it would not. But she had built a good life around that hole, filled with love and purpose and family. Her father had wanted her to survive, had given his life so that she could run. She had honored that sacrifice by not just surviving, but thriving. She had found love in the most unexpected place with the most unexpected person, and together they had created something beautiful. By 1890, their family had grown again with the birth of twins, a boy and a girl they named James and Julia. The ranch now sprawled across several hundred acres, and Cole had partnered with several other ranchers to establish a cooperative that gave them better prices and more negotiating power. Sarah had started a small school on the ranch for their children and the children of their ranch hands, teaching them herself and loving every moment. Thomas, now 6, was already showing signs of inheriting his father's skill with horses and cattle. He would tag along after Cole whenever allowed, mimicking his father's walk and his careful way of talking to the animals. Katie, at 3, was indeed proving to be as smart and observant as Cole had predicted, already reading simple words and asking questions that made Sarah laugh with their precocious insight. Life was full and chaotic and wonderful. Some days Sarah was so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open. Other days she was so filled with joy she thought she might overflow with it. But every day she woke up next to Cole Quinn, and every day she was grateful for the strange path that had led her to him. On Thomas's 7th birthday in August of 1891, they threw a party that drew families from all over the county. Children ran wild through the ranch, playing games and eating cake and generally creating the kind of joyful chaos that only children could manage. Adults stood in groups, talking and laughing, and Sarah stood on the porch of their house, watching it all with a sense of deep contentment. Cole came up behind her, sliding his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy?" he murmured. "Beyond happy, I did not know life could be this full. Me either." He paused, then added, "I have been thinking about something. Should I be worried? Maybe. I want to sponsor a water station for travelers crossing the desert, a place where people can stop and refill canteens, rest in the shade, maybe find a meal if they need it. I keep thinking about how you walked right past Cottonwood Spring because you did not know it was there. How many other people have died for lack of knowing where the water is?" Sarah turned in his arms to look at him fully. "That is a wonderful idea. Where would you put it?" "I was thinking at the crossroads between here and Las Vegas, where the main trail splits. It is about the right distance for travelers to need water, and it is visible from far off. I could build a shelter, dig a well, maybe have someone living there to maintain it. It would be expensive. We can afford it now, and even if we could not, it would be worth it. Your life was worth saving, Sarah. Everyone's life is worth saving." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, moved by the fact that even after all these years, Cole still remembered that desperate woman in the desert, still felt compelled to help others avoid her fate. "Let us do it," she said. "Let us build it together. We can call it Monroe Station, after my parents, a memorial to them and a help to travelers." Cole's eyes lit up. "That is perfect. Yeah, let us do it." The water station was completed by the spring of 1892, a sturdy building with a reliable well, a large covered porch for shade, and a small house for the attendant they hired, an older man named Henry, who had worked as a scout and knew the desert as well as Cole did. Word spread quickly among travelers that there was a safe stopping point on the dangerous stretch between El Dorado Canyon and Las Vegas, and soon a steady stream of people were using the station. More than once, Henry sent word that he had found someone in distress and needed Dr. Fisher or supplies, and each time, Sarah and Cole responded immediately. They saved 3 lives that first year, 2 men and a woman who had been abandoned by their traveling party. Each time, Sarah thought of herself, of those 3 days without water, and silently thanked God that they could spare others that horror. Their family continued to grow. In 1893, Sarah gave birth to another daughter, Anna, and in 1895, their youngest son, Lucas, was born. Their house was always full of noise and activity, children running and playing and fighting and making up again. Cole proved to be an excellent father, patient and kind but firm when necessary. He taught their children to ride almost before they could walk, to respect the desert and the animals, to value hard work and honesty. Sarah watched him with their children and fell in love with him over and over again. The way he swung Katie up onto his shoulders so she could see farther. The way he sat Thomas down and explained how to mend a fence with the same seriousness he would use with an adult. The way he rocked the babies in the middle of the night so Sarah could sleep. Every day, he proved that the man she had fallen in love with in the desert was even better than she had first believed. Their ranch hands became like family over the years. Several of them married and brought their own families to live on the ranch, building small houses and putting down roots. The Quinn Ranch became a community, a place where people looked out for each other and worked together toward common goals. Cole and Sarah hosted holiday dinners that brought everyone together, and Sarah taught all the children, not just her own. In 1898, when Thomas was 14, he asked to join Cole on a cattle drive to California. It was a rite of passage of sorts, proof that he was growing up and ready to take on more responsibility. Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to keep her eldest child close and safe, but she knew that was not fair to him or to Cole. "He will be fine," Cole assured her the night before they were set to leave. "I will watch out for him, and he is capable and smart." "You raised him well." "We raised him well," Sarah corrected, "and I know he is ready. I just worry." "That is what mothers do. It is what fathers do too. But we also have to let them grow up." They did, and Thomas returned 6 weeks later, sunburned and exhausted and glowing with pride at having completed his first real cattle drive. He told stories around the dinner table for weeks, and Sarah watched him becoming a man before her eyes, tall and strong and confident like his father. The years spun on, each one bringing its own challenges and joys. Katie grew into a beautiful young woman who shocked everyone by announcing at 16 that she wanted to become a doctor, not a wife. Sarah and Cole supported her ambition, even when it meant sending her to San Francisco for schooling, even when the town gossips clucked their tongues about girls getting above themselves. The twins, James and Julia, were inseparable and wild, constantly getting into mischief and driving their older siblings crazy. Anna was quiet and artistic, spending hours sketching the desert landscapes and the cattle and her family. Lucas, the baby, was charming and sweet-natured, already wrapping everyone around his little finger by the time he was 5. Through it all, Sarah and Cole remained partners in every sense of the word. They still took rides into the desert together when they could, still talked long into the night about their dreams and fears and plans. The passion between them had mellowed into something deeper, but no less intense, a bone deep, knowing that they belonged together. On their 20th wedding anniversary in 1903, Cole surprised Sarah by taking her back to the exact spot where he had found her in the desert. But this time, instead of an empty wasteland, there was a small stone marker he had commissioned, engraved with simple words. Here, everything began. Sarah stood in front of the marker, tears streaming down her face. "Cole Quinn, you are going to make me cry. Good tears, I hope. The best tears." She turned to him, this man who had saved her life and then filled it with more love than she had thought possible. His hair was graying at the temples now. Lines creased his face from years of sun and wind, but to her, he was as handsome as he had been at 27. "I would do it all again," Sarah said. "Every hard moment, every loss, every fear, if it meant ending up here with you. Even the 3 days without water? Even that, because those 3 days brought me to you." Cole pulled her close, and they stood together in the desert that had tried to kill her and had instead given her everything. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those colors Sarah loved, the deep blues and purples that meant day was ending and night was coming. But she was not afraid of the darkness, not with Cole beside her. As they rode back to the ranch, Sarah thought about the scared young woman who had stumbled through this desert 21 years ago, certain she was going to die alone and forgotten. If she could go back and tell that woman what the future held, she would hardly believe it. A loving husband, 5 beautiful children, a successful ranch, a community that felt like family, a life filled with purpose and joy. All because a cowboy who knew where every spring was had happened to ride past at exactly the right moment. The years continued to unfold, bringing their share of challenges. There were droughts that tested the ranch's resources, market crashes that made money tight, illnesses and injuries that sent the family to their knees in prayer. But through it all, Sarah and Cole held firm, their partnership unshakable, their love the foundation on which everything else was built. In 1905, Katie graduated from medical school and returned to Nevada, setting up practice in a larger town about 30 miles from El Dorado Canyon. She was one of the first female doctors in the state, and Sarah and Cole beamed with pride at her courage and determination. Thomas, now 21, had taken over much of the day-to-day running of the ranch, proving himself a capable manager and a natural leader. He married a sweet young woman named Elizabeth in 1906, and they moved into a house on the ranch property, starting the next generation of Quinns. The twins went their separate ways after finishing school. James stayed on the ranch, working alongside Thomas and Cole, while Julia surprised everyone by moving to San Francisco to study law. Anna married a painter she met in town and moved to Santa Fe, her letters home filled with descriptions of the art community there. Lucas, still young at 10, showed signs of inheriting his father's gift with animals and his mother's love of learning. By 1908, Sarah and Cole were grandparents, Thomas and Elizabeth having welcomed a daughter they named Sarah Catherine after both grandmothers. Holding her namesake for the first time, Sarah felt the circle completing itself in the most beautiful way. She had lost her parents in violence and chaos, but she had created a new family, a legacy that would continue long after she was gone. "We did good," Cole said, standing beside her as she rocked the baby. They were in their 50s now, no longer young but not yet old, comfortable in their own skins and in each other's presence. "We did," Sarah agreed. "Better than good. We did extraordinary." Their 30th wedding anniversary in 1913 was celebrated with a huge party at the ranch, attended by what felt like half of Nevada. Their children came home, bringing spouses and babies and stories of their own lives. Friends from El Dorado Canyon and beyond filled the house and the yard, eating and drinking and celebrating 3 decades of love and partnership. Mrs. Chen, now ancient but still sharp-tongued, gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. "These two fools," she said, gesturing at Sarah and Cole, almost too stubborn to admit they loved each other. But love won, like it always does when people are brave enough to reach for it. They built this beautiful family, this wonderful ranch, this community. They saved lives with their water station. They raised children who are making the world better. And they did it all with love as their foundation. We should all be so lucky. Later, when the party had wound down and most people had gone home or found places to sleep, Sarah and Cole snuck away to their favorite spot, a ridge overlooking the ranch where they could see the whole spread laid out below them. The house was lit up, people moving inside, and in the distance they could see the glow of fires where some guests were camping out. 30 years, Sarah said softly. "It feels like both forever and no time at all." "I know what you mean. Sometimes I still see you as that 22-year-old woman I found in the desert. Other times I cannot remember what my life was like before you were in it." "Do you have any regrets?" Cole thought about it, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "No, not one. My only regret would be if I had not found you that day, if I had ridden a different direction or checked the water source a day later. That would be my regret, missing you. You did not miss me. You found me exactly when you were supposed to. We found each other." "We did." Cole turned to face her, the moonlight silvering his gray hair and highlighting the lines of his beloved face. "I love you, Sarah Quinn. I have loved you for 30 years, and I will love you for however many more we get. You are my heart, my home, my everything." Sarah kissed him, this man who had saved her life in every way that mattered. "And you are mine, forever and always." They sat together on that ridge until the stars wheeled overhead and the moon set, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Below them, their family slept safe and warm, the ranch they had built solid and thriving, their legacy assured. Sarah thought about those 3 days without water, about stumbling through the desert, certain she was going to die. She thought about Cole riding toward her like salvation itself, about the months of healing and falling in love, about the wedding that had started everything. Every moment of suffering, every loss, every fear had been worth it to get here, to this life, to this love. The desert had almost killed her, but instead, it had given her everything. And the cowboy, who knew where every spring was, had become her spring, her source of life and love, and endless possibility. As dawn began to paint the eastern sky with color, Sarah and Cole finally stood to head back to the house. Their children and grandchildren were there, waiting for breakfast and another day of celebration. There was life to be lived, love to be shared, memories to be made. Hand in hand, they walked down the ridge toward home, together as they had been for 30 years, together as they would be for all the years to come. The desert stretched around them, vast and beautiful and unforgiving, but they had learned its secrets, had made peace with its harshness, had built a life in its midst that was full of water and love and joy. Sarah Monroe had walked 3 days without water, certain she would die alone in the wasteland. Cole Quinn had known where every spring was, but the most important thing he found in the desert was not water at all. It was love, partnership, family, and home. It was everything that made life worth living. And it all started in the desert, where two lost souls found each other and built a love that would last forever.